Imagine you are looking at the internal dashboards of two very different machines. One is a high-performance sports car, pushed to its absolute limits on a daily basis. The other is a commuter sedan, parked in a garage, idling with the engine running for hours on end. If you look closely at the warning lights on both dashboards, you might be shocked to see that they are flashing the exact same error code.
Whew. That is such a perfect way to visualize what we are diving into today. Because when we talk about human biology, that dashboard is heart rate variability, or HRV. And the error code we are seeing tells a story that completely flips our understanding of health, fitness, and modern work culture.
Exactly. HRV has become the ultimate buzzword in the wearable tech space. Everyone is obsessed with their scores every morning, but we are not talking about fitness tracking today. We are looking at a hypothetical 14-day biological showdown between two completely opposite groups: highly trained athletes and purely sedentary office workers.
Right. And the reason this comparison is so fascinating is that HRV does not actually measure how many push-ups you can do or how fast you can run a mile. It measures nervous system adaptability. It is essentially a mirror reflecting how well your autonomic nervous system is handling the load of your life.
So let us set the stage for this 14-day showdown. On day one, this starting line looks exactly like you would expect. Group A, our athletes come out swinging. They have a high baseline HRV, a low resting heart rate, and incredible cardiovascular conditioning. Group B, our office workers, start in a much tougher spot. Suppressed HRV, elevated resting heart rates, and inconsistent sleep. Case closed, right? The athletes win.
You would think so. Because regular aerobic conditioning does something incredible to the body. It increases parasympathetic tone, which is the rest and digest side of your nervous system. Exercise makes your heart more efficient and gives you what we call autonomic flexibility. But this is where the 14-day window reveals its first massive twist. As the days progress, the athlete's pristine HRV does not stay pristine.
This is the part that completely blew my mind. You are telling me that during a heavy training block, an elite athlete's HRV can actually crash so hard that it drops below the baseline of the guy who sits on a couch eating chips?
Absolutely. And it happens all the time. When athletes enter a phase of high training intensity, especially if you mix in travel, performance pressure, or a slight calorie deficit, their nervous system takes a massive hit. Fitness does not make you immune to stress physiology. In fact, an overtraining athlete is intentionally redlining their system. For a few days in that 14-day window, their biological dashboard is flashing red.
That completely shatters the illusion that being fit means you are automatically healthy at a cellular level every single day. But let us pivot to the office workers, because their data tells a story that is arguably much darker. They are not running marathons. They are sitting in ergonomic chairs for 9 hours a day. Many of them will say, "I am not physically tired at all." Yet their HRV data looks like they are fighting for their lives. Why?
We call it invisible stress. The human nervous system is incredibly sophisticated, but it has one major design flaw. It cannot easily distinguish between a physical threat and a psychological one. When an office worker is staring at a screen late at night, dealing with a toxic boss, or stressing over a deadline, their brain triggers the exact same cortisol pathways and inflammatory signaling as if they were being chased by a predator.
So their body is flooding with stress hormones, but they have no physical outlet for it. They are just sitting there, absorbing the chemical storm.
Precisely. They are soaking in chronic, low-grade stress. Combine that with late-night screen exposure, caffeine overload to get through the afternoon slump, and poor sleep timing, and you get a nervous system that is chronically locked in a sympathetic fight-or-flight state.
Which leads us to the most mind-bending overlap in this entire comparison. The moment where the data lines of the athlete and the office worker intersect. You look at the physiological profile of a severely burned out corporate executive, and you look at an overtrained, exhausted athlete. What do you see?
You see the exact same person. Biologically speaking, they are indistinguishable. Both show rock-bottom HRV, fragmented sleep, elevated nighttime heart rates, autonomic dysregulation, and emotional fatigue. The executive is biologically exhausted without ever lifting a weight, and the athlete is biologically exhausted from lifting all of them.
That is such a profound commentary on modern society. We have literally engineered a lifestyle where answering endless emails and sitting in endless meetings demands the same physiological toll as professional sports. We are running marathons at our desks, but we do not get a medal at the end. We just get another Monday.
That is a brilliant way to put it. But while the burnout might look the same, there is one critical difference that emerges over the full 14 days, and it comes down to HRV stability and oscillation.
Right, the bounce back. Walk us through that, because if both groups crash, who recovers better?
The athletes, without a doubt. Athletes demonstrate what we call fast recovery oscillation. Their HRV might crash into the basement after a grueling workout or a stressful competition, but because of their metabolic flexibility and vascular health, it rebounds efficiently. The office workers, on the other hand, show chronically flattened HRV patterns.
A flat line.
Exactly. A flat line. Their nervous system loses its elasticity. It forgets how to bounce back because it is never given a clear signal that the threat has passed. The emails never stop. The phone never stops buzzing. So the nervous system just stays rigid and suppressed.
It sounds like a massive part of this comes down to how these two groups treat the concept of recovery. Because for an athlete, recovery is literally part of the job description. They train hard, but they also rest aggressively. They prioritize sleep timing, hydration, and nutrition.
And contrast that with the office worker. In corporate culture, recovery is often viewed as a luxury, or worse, as laziness. Office workers rarely structure their downtime intentionally. They finish a stressful day of work and then relax by doom scrolling on their phones, which just feeds more blue light and psychological stimulation into a nervous system that is already begging for a break.
It is the illusion of rest. We think because we are not moving, we are recovering. But the nervous system is still running a marathon in the background. This really brings us to the core factors driving these differences. Sleep quality is obviously a massive one. We know that even a tiny amount of sleep deprivation dramatically suppresses HRV. But what about movement variability? How does simply moving our bodies change the nervous system?
It is foundational. When an athlete trains, they expose their cardiovascular system to a massive challenge, and then they stop. That contrast, high intensity followed by rest, trains the nervous system to shift gears smoothly. Sedentary behavior eliminates that contrast. When you sit all day, you reduce your circulatory variability. Your heart does not have to adapt to changing demands, so it loses its resilience.
It is like never taking your car on the highway. Eventually, the engine just gets sluggish.
Exactly. And that is why the actionable takeaways from this 14-day showdown are so critical, and they are completely different for each group.
Let us break those down. If I am an athlete listening to this, or even just someone who trains heavily 5 or 6 days a week, what is the protocol?
If you are in that high physical output group, you need to monitor your HRV trends, not just the daily number. You have to respect that psychological stress from your personal life or your job will impact your physical recovery. You cannot out-train a stressed nervous system. Sleep is not just rest for you. Sleep is performance biology. You have to avoid chronic overload and prioritize recovery just as aggressively as you prioritize your workouts.
And what about the office workers, the people listening to this on their commute or sitting at a desk right now, realizing that their invisible stress is causing real physiological damage? How do they get their nervous system out of that flat line?
For the sedentary group, movement is medicine, but it does not have to be a brutal workout. Simple movement variability matters enormously. Getting morning sunlight in your eyes helps regulate your circadian rhythm, which directly boosts HRV. Taking short walks throughout the day forces your circulatory system to adapt, which improves autonomic balance. And most importantly, you have to recognize that your psychological stress is physiological stress. You need strict boundaries around sleep, regularity, and screen time to give your nervous system a chance to actually power down.
It really shifts the entire paradigm of how we view health. For decades, we thought the greatest modern health crisis was simply inactivity. We thought we were just getting soft. But looking at this data, it is so much deeper than that. The real crisis is chronic autonomic overload hiding inside ordinary daily life.
It is the silent epidemic of our time. We have normalized living in a constant state of low-grade emergency. We treat HRV like a fitness score, but it is really a truth teller. It strips away the illusions we have about how well we are coping with our lives.
It forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. What is the true biological cost of our modern ambition? If sitting in a chair and stressing over a spreadsheet is doing the same thing to our hearts and brains as physical exhaustion, we have to fundamentally rethink how we work and how we rest.
We absolutely do. Because at the end of the day, when you strip away the job titles, the workout gear, and the social expectations, human biology is brutally honest. Your body does not care whether stress comes from deadlifts or deadlines.
A powerful reminder to take a deep breath, step away from the screen, and give your nervous system the break it actually deserves.